Hello everyone, this is Abhilash Nandi and I would like to start off this video with an apology that I did not release the second part of the pooling former paper explanation video. I'm really sorry for that, and from now on I hope that I keep up with a regular schedule of uploading videos, and I request you to go through the paper's last few pages in order to get a glimpse of the results. So over here now I shall start with a totally new topic which is based on annotation, annotators, and the data that is normally used in machine learning and deep learning and the source of all this data. So once a great man said that with great annotators come great data, and with great data comes great results. So where can we find good annotators? So that's the question. And so some plausible solutions are maybe domain experts. So if we consider domain experts, so domain experts, if we have the task of legal summarization, say there are lots of books or lots of legal cases, so in order to make them legible for a new law practitioner, it would be beneficial if the cases that have already been dealt with are summarized. So this summarization would require knowledge of law and of legal jargons. So legal summarization is something which requires domain experts if you want to automate it. Next comes image segmentation of X-ray images. So over here you can see a chest X-ray image, and over here the left lung, right lung, and some other part which I don't know is basically, it might be a problematic area maybe. So it's obviously not a job of a layman like me to annotate this particular image for image segmentation. So it's basically skillful people who would be responsible for annotating such critical data. Uh, and then finally we have an example from scientific papers. So this is basically named entity recognition. So over here it is based on a very specific scientific field, uh, which is basically outside the general layman's domain. So it requires very specific domain experts in order to annotate this particular named entity recognition. So in critical cases like these, or in cases where you require a deep knowledge of the subject, that is where domain experts come handy. And another plausible solution is crowdsourcing, which will be kind of the thing that we'll be discussing later on. So instead of legal documents, if there are simple generic documents, say it might be Wikipedia or the books corpus, then in that case, books corpus is basically a corpus of books. Yeah, the name suggests. So if we have to summarize that, then we can use normal people who have like who need not have a very specific domain specific knowledge. Similarly, as regards to image segmentation, where it's a generic scenery, not a scenery, I mean generic, uh, like real day-to-day image. So over there also, simple layman can be used for image segmentation annotation. And if we consider named entity recognition, so over here we can see that is just simply labeling person, location, organization. So this particular thing can be very easily done by people like us. So so this crowdsourcing basically helps when there is no specific domain involved. The data is not very critical. So the problem is it might be of variable quality because it depends on who is annotating, but the scalability is 100% sure. you can scale it to as many crowdsource workers as possible, whereas in case of domain experts will get best quality, but scalability will be less because there are very few domain experts in general. So if we consider the Drake meme, which has been overused, then we'll consider only crowdsourcing in this particular video and we'll neglect domain experts. So what the heck is crowdsourcing? Crowdsourcing is basically the practice of obtaining information or input into a task or project by enlisting the services of a large number of people, either paid or unpaid, typically via the internet. So I just read the definition. So it basically means that you basically pay people. They need not have very uh, rigorous training in a particular domain, and so basically what you want them from them in return is some sort of annotation of data or collection of data. So as you can see over here, crowdsourcing is less expensive than hiring a professional translator. That's what Google says. So professional translator means it's a domain expert. So another rotated Drake meme over here. Over here it suggests that crowdsourcing is the way to go because it's less expensive than hiring a professional translator. Not always, but in many cases, wherever the subject knowledge required is not that much, or maybe the situation is not that critical, we can always we should prefer to go for crowdsourcing. So moving on, here are some crowdsourcing platforms. So, oh, one thing, this Crowdflower company has been acquired by Appen. Figure it. So, Amazon Mechanical Turk has been used by several research papers in the past in order to, and R&D companies in order to carry on their data annotation tasks. Whereas Appen is in, as far as I know, is a very recent occurrence or has very recently become popular. And micro workers is so popular, not that popular. The problem with MTurkit is it is available in limited countries, not available in India from where I belong, as in we cannot use Amazon Mechanical Turk directly for launching an annotation. It requires some mix of SageMaker and it's very complicated basically. So Appen is something which is available in many countries. Although I have to exactly check which countries, I haven't checked that, but in India it's available, and so is microworkers. Okay, if we have huge amounts of data, then Amazon and Mechanical Turk and Appen are the way to go. Microworkers, as the name suggests, it is only for small amounts of data annotation like surveys and all, simple surveys, simple forms. So filtering, as in if you want to filter out crowdsource workers based on your annotation task. So it might happen that your annotation task has to do something with movies. Then you basically want to filter out movie buffs from the population, or it has something to do with say like novels, right? So you have to like filter out people who are interested in reading stuff. So basically you need some sort of filtering like that. So this kind of a fine-grained filtering is possible in Amazon Mechanical Turk because it allows you to have an initial sort of a form which any annotator can fill, and if he or she is able to pass a particular threshold, then only he or she is allowed to continue on with the actual annotation task. Whereas in Appen and micro workers, this particular filtering is in a limited sort of sense because over there you can filter out countries of the annotators as well as the language, but and in Appen it's also possible to filter out a level of the annotator, as in how good the annotator was previously based on that. But however, you cannot exactly nitpick the interests of the annotator. Finally, UI. So UI is something which is very critical to the annotation workflow. So Amazon Mechanical Turk, in that you have to code yourself, so that's a pain in the ass. And if you have Appen and micro workers, so you have both templates available and you can even code on your own. So for normal layman people like us, it's a really good way to go. Appen and micro workers who are lazy and don't want to code. I came across another very interesting annotation platform, which is Labelbox. So it has got automated annotation, it has got a great UI, so it has also got human in the loop. So it's basically a mixture of automated annotation, that is using machine learning model for annotation, and also having humans for the annotation. So it's a mix of the two. So it's basically hella cool. However, the OGs of this annotation platform history, according to me, or as per the limited knowledge that I have, are Amazon Mechanical Turk and Crowdflower, which has become Appen now. So, and also in addition to that, I live in India, so it's Amazon Mechanical Turk, as I told you, is has a limited access in India. It's very difficult to set it up in India. So I thought, why not? Since Appen, I have used Appen in the past, so why not just give a sort of a short demo of how Appen, the workflow in Appen is, and how we can use it. Let's go. So if you go to the link client.appen.com, so over there we'll find, so over here I have signed in, so it will just, you can use your email ID and a suitable password to sign up, and you'll be sent a confirmation mail, and then you can confirm your account and then you can sign in. It's a simple sign up procedure. And over here I have used Appen in the past, so I have a few jobs lined up as a history. However, for new starters, this whole thing will be vacant. So if you want to start a new job, you can go for create job. So either you can start from scratch, where basically you need to sort of make your own template. So you need to code up your own template. Otherwise, you can, if you want to go for a very like cliche kind of a task, say sentiment analysis, then you can pick up anything from here. So it ranges from text tasks on text like sentiment analysis to even data validation, uh, image annotation in computer vision, transcription as regards to audio data. So let's consider sentiment analysis. So over here, if we go to sentiment analysis, over here we can see the template as to how the template would look to an end crowdsource worker. Over here, so in general, this is the layout. You will have an overview, you'll have the steps or instructions to be followed for the crowd worker, some rules or tips, and generally an example. So these are different examples of positive, neutral, and negative sentiments, and these are example tweets. And so basically this is the main annotation part. So over here the text has to be read. You can also go to the tweet, and over here the user can select whether what is the sentiment is which of the three by clicking on the suitable radio button. That is on the user's end. So if we, let's say, use this template, so okay, it's taking some time. All right, so job has been created. So over here you can just feed in your data in the form of CSV. As you can see, supported formats are CSV, TSV, XLS, basically Excel file, CSV file, in general. So you can feed it into this. So it can have several fields, and in the design, so this is the whole workflow. So in design you can basically, so this is a template. You can either use this particular template in order to design the whole thing, and over here are the things that will appear at the top of any annotation to any annotator. uh, you can do this way, or if you want to code up, you can also go for, say, switch to code editor over here. So over here it's a mixture of HTML as well as context markup language of Apple. So over here it's basically, if you want to give, if the, like, whichever are the input fields for the annotator to sort of give their own inputs, so over there context markup language pops up. So you can use CML. So these are various, so if you click on any of these you will have a sample snippet, and you can also use this to learn more. Use this link. So this is how you can do stuff, and you can also add CSS, JavaScript. That's totally on you. So since over here we do not have the data, let's go back and sort of see a previous project or previous annotation task that I sort of launched to get an overview. So let's say we go to this question. So this task was basically, we had annotated question answer pairs from a particular, like, expert annotator, and we wanted to validate the quality of annotation. So we use crowdsourcing for that. So basically this is the CSV that I uploaded, which contains question ID, question, answer. So basically these are the main fields. So these are the fields that are added over here by Appen themselves. So unit ID is basically some unique ID that is assigned to each row. The state is something which depends on, like, so we'll come to the state later. So judgments are, so for each row or for each sample you can have multiple judgments, so multiple annotators can annotate the same row. So this is done, this is a very prevalent practice in annotation, so as to sort of so if a single annotator basically annotates a particular data sample, then there is the possibility of noise and bias. So in order to root out any bias of the user, we prefer multiple number of judgments, and this is just a field which shows how the judgments agree with each other. So what fraction of the judgments agree with each other. So yeah, this is the way your data will look once you upload it. You can even add more data, that is also possible. And in order to use these fields in your say in your UI, which will be used by the crowd worker, go to design. So over here you can see I just coded it up because it was a very simple interface. So over here, so the preview is something like this. You can see the preview over here is the preview. So this is the way the crowd worker will sort of view the page from their side. So the over here is a very simple instruction. I didn't give much instructions or overview. So this is the question is how to get rid of chocolate stains. So it's a very ridiculous question, I know. So it's like the answer is remove excess chocolate, whatever it's in the red. So basically, so the thing is you have to, like, keep giving the question and answer pairs, different question answer pairs to different annotators. So how is that done? Is that particular, so in the data, if you see, there are the two main fields are question and answer. So whatever is the So you give it as a placeholder. So over here you give it within two curly braces, question, and over here answer, and rest of it is normal HTML, and it's basically a mix of HTML and CML, or the context markup language, as you can see. So that's the UI part, and over here you can give general instructions and whatnot. All right, then we go to quality. So if you go to quality, it's basically you can sort of give test questions. So by test, what is a test question? Test question is something by which you can filter out annotators who do not get what the task is about, or they just like do some erroneous annotations. So in order to do that, either you can like go to quality and create some. So you will be presented with different question answer pairs randomly, one after the other. So let's say you are sure that this particular question answer pair is this particular option, say, then you can also give a reason that why it is so, and you can save that and you can keep creating. Or else another way to create test questions is you go to data, you go to a particular unit ID, then you, okay, so this is already a test question, sorry, you go to a unit ID, you make it a test question, and over here is the same thing, like does the given answer answer the given question. So if you are sure about yes, then tick that, and sort of if you want to give the reason, you can do that, and you can save the changes. And based on the number of test questions that you give, and you can also pass a threshold, which I'll show you later. If the percentage of questions that an annotator answers in the test questions is lesser than the threshold, then the annotator would be just flagged, and their annotations won't matter in the final results. So that is one filtering technique that is used. So if you go to launch, so over here this is where you launch your annotation task. So before this, I would like to show you that there is in the right top settings option, where you can go and you can have two types of settings of like two types of annotators possible. One could be external, where you just launch the annotation and it is open to all sorts of crowd workers. Anyone can annotate, and you give them a particular fixed amount of money for each annotation, and in return they annotate that particular data sample. So that could be one way, or another could be an internal way in which you can give this particular link to any of your workforce or any of your colleagues or friends, and they can also annotate. So both the things are possible, so it depends upon you. So, and there are different contributor levels. So this is another way to filter out annotators. Level 1 is like all qualified contributors, level 2 is a little higher accuracy, and level 3 is the most experienced and highest accuracy. So if you use level 3, in general, from my experience, I've seen that the annotation speed reduces a little bit, but that factor is like very less, so it's always preferable that you use level 3. And over here you can mention if it contains explicit content, and you can also go for selecting channels, but I'm not very much aware of which channel is what, so I generally do not use this filter. You can select countries where you want the annotators to be from. You can select the language which you prefer. So all these settings are there for filtering out contributors or annotators. Quality control test questions I have already discussed. So test questions, so this is the part which I was telling, you can set a threshold. So below that threshold, if there is an accuracy that the annotator is giving, then that annotator is basically discarded. Quality control settings, I do not play around with this much, but you can assign a minimum time per page. So a page can contain multiple annotations. So you can calculate a particular amount of time that has to be allotted by the annotator minimally, so as to make the annotation. So if the annotator, so this helps if the annotator is just like giving some sort of a bogus annotation, just not even reading the task in hand and just uh, ticking something or typing in some bogus stuff. So this helps to reduce that a bit. So you can have some sort of an estimated time that would be required to do the annotation, and accordingly you can mention your time here, and any annotator that takes a time less than that would be flagged. This is number of maximum judgments per contributor. You can also control that, and these are some things which I haven't explored much, like can have the distribution of the answers in a certain way, and if like the contributors who tend to deviate from that will be flagged. This is something which you use when the language is sort of maybe not English or some other language, maybe not aware of these settings, but yeah, these are interesting. Sharing or visibility is okay, that's not a, even API is also a very useful thing. Yeah, so over here you can control the payment as well as the rows per page. So I would suggest that over here you set the rows per page, that is how many rows or how many samples the annotator can see at a time. Each annotator can see at a time. So over here it's 2. So if you see the preview, which I already clicked earlier, so you can see there are 2. So the annotator will be able to see these 2. Doesn't mean that the annotator will only be able to do 2 annotations. The annotator can finish up this particular page and can also go for another page. So that is just, this is just to like sort of ensure that if your task is simple enough, then you can have like multiple of those tasks in a page. So that sort of keeps the continuity of the task, and maybe the task might finish faster. So that's the idea behind that. And if your task is a bit cumbersome or requires more space, then maybe I would suggest you to lower the number of rows per page. And price per page, you can either set it here, but I would suggest you go back to launch, because we have covered all settings here. Go back to launch, and over here you select the price per judgment. This is, so there is now this term judgment. So what is a judgment? Judgment is basically a single annotation. So before that you can see judgments per row. So this is for a particular data sample, as I already told you how many judgments or annotations you want, so as to like eliminate any bias. And this is price per judgment. So per judgment of per judgment per annotator, how much you want to pay. So this is totally upon you. This depends on the difficulty of your task. So in general I've seen like uh, I don't know, it's like depends, like if it's just simply sort of a yes or no kind of a task as this was, then 2 or 3 cents a piece is quite good, I feel. So and the pace of the annotation is also quite good. So and over here you can like control the number of rows that you want to launch, and you can either launch all the rows at a time, or you can sort of go slow and test out a few rows and see how it performs. You can even pause your job, so this thing will come later. Over here it will show you the available funds, whatever. So these available funds, this can be you can check this out in your account settings. So over here you can go to your account and go to your funds, and over there you'll be able to sort of reach. So this is basically a wallet, so you can recharge the wallet using a credit card. So that's that. And yeah, so one more thing, it'll, if your annotation costs less than $10, so what it would do is it would add some sort of a cost buffer, and you have to pay a minimum of $10 to start any annotation task. Later on, if it so happens that lower cost was incurred for the annotation task, then the remaining amount would be stored in your wallet, which could be used for future annotation purposes. So just a quick detail on that. And once you launch, you can monitor the progress of your annotation using this monitor tab. So in this dashboard you have the percentage of completion of the number of rows, how many judgments, so the cost incurred, and yeah, this is the number of rows uploaded. That's fine. So this is just like how many how many people basically were you. So this is not a very important thing. So over here you can see if any judgments were basically flagged. So I was lucky enough that over here nothing was flagged. And this is like a distribution of the number of judgments every hour. All right. And so just to give you an idea of how fast, so this was a yes no task, simply whether the answer satisfactorily answers a particular question. So that was a task. In total there were 50 rows and 3 annotations per row, so 150 judgments. So all in all it was completed in about a day, 24 hours or 25 hours. So I guess that's an okay speed. That's quite a good speed for annotation. So later on it, like became a little slow, but however we are able to finish. So these are some test questions that you can see the number of test questions. And over here there is finally an internal survey that Appen puts up for any crowd worker. So at the end of the survey, the crowd worker can if he or she wishes to give this particular survey, they can. So this survey is basically a feedback form sort of, where you can score the survey based on the clarity of the instructions, whether the test questions were fair, on the pay. So pay is a big matter when it comes to crowdsourcing platforms like mturk and even Appen. So yeah, this is something which I still need to check as like an annotation task launcher, that whether I'm paying the right amount for a given annotation task. So I guess that fair payment is an important part which we should look into more deeply. And ease of job, so how easy was the job? So that is also something that this particular form has. All right, and over here you can, so these are some more things like advanced analytics and contributors. So just gives you some more analytics and data visualization of the annotation. And in the results you can either download the full data in the form of CSV, so you will be able to know all sorts of things like the crowd workers, like in general details like the country of the crowd worker, these kinds of things, and of course the data that he or she has annotated, and what is the label that he or she has given, or what is the input that he or she has fed. These are other sorts of also some like other sorts of reports that you can download. And this is a new feature which I have not yet gone into, so I wouldn't be discussing this right now. So maybe sometime later. This is some auditing feature, which I think is has something to do with basically seeing how the annotation was, the quality of the annotation. That's my feeling. So this was basically a brief overview of the pipeline that is followed in Appen, and I feel that it is quite simple to do, or quite simple to follow. And if you have some basic knowledge of HTML and CSS, then you can easily code up your own UI, and you can annotate lots of data. So the only drawback which I feel is, unlike Amazon MTurk, where you can give some sort of an initial survey form where you can filter out annotators based on their niche, based on their interests, or based on their qualifications. That thing is lacking over here. So that is something that is I guess the only drawback which I find over here. And also of course that the problem of underpayment of crowd workers is a prevalent problem which needs to be addressed. So yeah, that's there. So that's also the case in Amazon Mechanical Turk. So but yeah, like still, if we can do something to do something to estimate the right amount that is to be given to each crowd worker for a particular task, if you can estimate that, so I guess that could sort of alleviate that problem. So other than that, I guess this is a pretty good platform to get started with your annotation task and then continue with your machine learning journey. So I guess that's that from my side. So yeah, so keep annotating, keep keep doing your machine learning tasks, and yeah, thanks a lot and have a good day.